Welcome back, fans, to another episode of the ECHL Insider. I am your host, Garrett Hunter, and boy, do we have some big news for you before we get into the Central Division preview. So let's just get on with it, right? The Utah Grizzlies franchise is relocating to Trenton, New Jersey next season. What big news! And just heartbreaking for Utah fans as their franchise will go away essentially. Utah has sold their franchise is what it was, and the new owners of the franchise decided that it's best to relocate to a former ECHL market, in fact, in Trenton, New Jersey. So they'll play in the same 7,000 seat arena that they did back in the early 2000s when the Trenton Titans were a part of the ECHL. They're bringing ECHL hockey, though, back to New Jersey, and a 8th franchise in the North Division, which does bring up the question next season, who's leaving the North Division? Greensboro is the 8th franchise in the North Division right now. Who's leaving? And obviously this is not official, by the way, but my speculation is that the ECHL will move the Wheeling Nailers back to the Central Division. That is my guess. Obviously, that's not official. Just geographically, we'll see. Remember, Greensboro probably wouldn't go to the South Division because Augusta comes in 2 seasons to be the 8th franchise in the South Division. So obviously, we'll see. But this comes on the heels of New Mexico starts next year, and they'll be the 8th franchise now. So just a lot of flip-flop moving around, but unfortunately, it leaves the Utah Grizzlies without hockey there. They do still have their NHL team, right, the Utah Mammoth, but no ECHL hockey after this season for the Grizzlies. So this is the final hunt, they're calling it, the final season for the Utah Grizzlies before they are off to Trenton, New Jersey to compete in the North Division. Well, with that, let's do our Central Division preview. We're going division by division leading up to the ECHL regular season start. We've done the North and the South Division, and now we turn the page to the Western Conference's Central Division today. So let's start. Obviously, in front of me, you see how these teams finished in the regular season with number 1 Toledo and number 7 the Bloomington Bison. So we'll start at the bottom or the top, either way, with number 7, the Bloomington Bison. So in their first season, disappointing, right, that you finished last, but I think there's a lot of optimism in this franchise. I think they would have liked to see a more fan support. Obviously, the building was empty on more nights than not. It felt like some quieter moments inside Grossinger Motor Arena, but I think this is just, part of starting a franchise, right? It's hard to get that fan support right away. It's not going to be Savannah-like for every franchise startup, what success that Savannah had. But I think we'll see a lot better. Obviously, as the product on the ice improves, the fan support's going to improve there in Illinois. So I think they got a great support staff around them. They got a great coach. I think they're going to take a next step this season. But yes, they finished last, but they were still in the playoff race into the very last week of the regular season up until that Wednesday night loss at Indy. So, really down the stretch, we were looking at Indy and Bloomington battling out for the 4th spot. Yes, they fall off in those last few weeks, but in the final week, it was unlikely, but they had a chance to make the playoffs. So I think that shows how competitive the Central Division is, and that this Bloomington team was competitive all season long. Next up is the Cincinnati Cyclones, a second straight season being out of the playoff picture, and that led to a coaching change in Cincinnati. Riley Weslowski is named the new head coach of the Cyclones, former associate coach of the Kansas City Mavericks, enjoyed a lot of success there, including a Brabham Cup win, regular season championship, and then a trip to the Kelly Cup Finals last year and a trip to the Western Conference Finals this past season. So a lot of success, a lot of deep playoff runs for Weslowski's franchise that he was a part of, the Mavericks, and he's going to try to bring that success to Cincinnati. I think it's a great coaching hire. I think the roster decisions have been amazing. Bringing back a lot of guys, getting a lot of new talent, a lot of ECHL guys that they're bringing in from other cities. So I think it's really, really good so far. We'll see what the goaltending situation and everything looks like in Cincinnati coming up in October. But I think it's optimism for Cincinnati. I think this is a really good coaching hire and a process that is definitely something that you should believe in as a Cincinnati fan. Finishing at number 5 was the Kalamazoo Wings, and again, they were in it till the final week. Losing at Indy knocked them out as well on a Friday night. So Indy, we talked about it back in the spring, but in that last week of the playoffs, Indy had the upper hand. They took care of Bloomington Wednesday. They take care of Kalamazoo Friday, and that ultimately is what clinched them a playoff spot, right? If they lose those games, things get really interesting going into the final 3 days of the regular season, but Indy took care of business at home, clinching a playoff spot and eliminating Kalamazoo. But for the Wings, I mean, I think the process of assembling a new roster has been pretty obvious. Yes, they're bringing back players, obviously. You got to have some returning talent, some knowledge, some experience in a locker room, but they are signing lots of young collegiate hockey players straight out of college. I mean, they're signing a lot of young guys, making pro debuts, a lot of rookie players coming into Kalamazoo this upcoming season. Should be fun to watch, obviously. Joel Martin has assembled a good roster in Kalamazoo, something that they can definitely get excited about going forward. Finishing at number 4, we just talked about them a little bit, was the Indy Fuel. They beat out Kalamazoo, Cincinnati, and Bloomington in a fierce playoff race to claim the 4th and final playoff spot. But it was short-lived, unfortunately, for Indy. A 4-0 sweep to the Toledo Walleye was suffered in just 4 games. So that is the 3rd straight time that this franchise has been swept by Toledo in the playoffs. Unfortunate, but just the fact of the matter is they weren't the better team in that series, but they had exerted, I think, a lot of energy, a lot of focus into getting into the playoffs. So once you're in the playoffs, they just didn't have the experience to ultimately get it done. But I think that's not something to be discouraged about. It's something to be like, hey, we made the playoffs. Now let's go build on that this season. And I think that's going to be the goal for Indy. Let's go build on that. Let's go make a playoff run. Let's go get a higher seed in this Central Division, But this season, think about what they were up against. They started the season with a 15-game road trip. They went 8-7 on that, and because of the new building being built. They get into their new building, they get into a rhythm, and we're ultimately able to go on a little bit of a run. So the fan support in Fisher's Event Center was great. Electric atmospheres there in Indy. The fans had no problem finding the new building, so to speak. And it was a great season for them. I think they're going to be obviously looking to go deeper into the playoffs, but definitely a nice success with the new building this past season. At number 3 was the Iowa Heartlanders. Talk about a successful season. They went from 3 straight last place finishes in the Central Division to their first playoff appearance. So definitely exciting. Head coach Derek Damon led them to that, into a thrilling series against the Fort Wayne Komets, where it went all the way down to a Game 7 overtime win at home in that series, right? Just a great series overall, but they don't get it done in the final game, right? A 2-0 loss to Fort Wayne in Game 7. Just disappointing, right? At first when you're eliminated, but I think this season is viewed as success for Iowa, right? You get your first playoff appearance. You make a really great effort in that first round and get eliminated, though, to a very, very good Fort Wayne team. So now going forward, obviously we talked about the coaching change. Damon accepted a different job. So with that, Chuck Weber now steps up as head coach for the Iowa Heartlanders, a guy who brings a lot of experience to the table in Iowa. So really excited for Iowa with the new coach. I think they want to pick up just where they left off last season. At number 2 was the Fort Wayne Comets. Fort Wayne, I mean, what a season, right? They get all the way to number 2. Guys like Jack Dugan, their captain, led them to that point. They had a really fun season, right? Round 1, we just talked about it. Game 7 win at home against Iowa. So thrilling. And then they go into their round 2 matchup against Toledo, lose game 1, blow out Toledo in Huntington Center, away from home. I think it was 6-1, blowout win. And then you come back and you're just, a bounce away, we can say, from going up 3-1 in that series in game 4 after winning game 3. And it doesn't happen, right? A double overtime win for Toledo. Absolute heartbreaker. Then you lose game 5 at home in heartbreaking fashion. And then you're thinking, what just happened, right? We're on the verge of winning this series at home, and now we're down 3-2. How did that happen? And so, such a disappointing turn of events, such disappointing bounces. You talk about a double overtime loss in there, and then they go back to Toledo in game 6 and lose the series. So, that series was so close, and the closest series that Toledo played this postseason, right? It was so close, razor thin margins. That's 4-2, but it could have easily gone game 7. A lot of overtime hockey in this series, but Fort Wayne, yes, obviously disappointing to lose to your rival in the Central Division Finals, but a lot to be excited about coming forward into this next season. I think this is a Fort Wayne team that expects to compete with Toledo for the top spot in this division. And I think they will compete with Toledo for the top spot in the division. If I had to predict it, Toledo and Fort Wayne are the top 2 teams at the end of the regular season in the Central Division. That's my prediction. That's how good this Fort Wayne team is. They're bringing a lot of guys back. They want another shot at Toledo, I think, in that fierce rivalry. And at number 1 was the Toledo Walleye, Central Division champions, Western Conference champions for the 3rd time in 4 years. But, it gets to the Kelly Cup Finals, and we all know what happened there. A 4-1 loss to Trois-Rivières in the Kelly Cup Finals. That is their 3rd finals loss since 2019. Just heartbreaking, gut-wrenching for Toledo and Toledo fans. But, this series was tied 1-1 after game 2, and never did I imagine when it was 1-1 that this series wouldn't go back to Toledo for a game 6. I thought, of course, this is going back game 6. It's just a matter of who has the 3-2 lead at that point, but that's not what happened. Trois-Rivières won games 3, 4, and 5 at home to claim the Kelly Cup. So just so disappointing. And I don't use this term lightly, but this season completely is cup or bust for Toledo. The expectation in Toledo is win the Kelly Cup. You've been to the Western Conference Final. You've won so many consecutive Central Division titles. You've been to the finals 3 times in 6 seasons. Now's the time, right? They got the coach in place. They got the playmakers in place. They got the captain in place. They have everything in place, it feels like, in Toledo. Now it's just a matter of finishing. Can you finish off a season with the Kelly Cup over your head? So Toledo has never won the Kelly Cup. They're looking for their first ever, and that is certainly the expectation now in Toledo. A lot of pressure on this coaching staff, Pat Mickish, obviously, but a coaching change was made at the associate coaching level. Chaz Redekop, a former Toledo player, enforcer, tough guy for Toledo, is now the associate coach of the Walleye. So definitely something to watch out for. Don't want to let Chaz Redekop probably talk to the refs. Might get a bench minor penalty for that if he uses his aggressiveness as a coach toward the officiating crew of the ECHL. So just something to think about, Toledo, going forward. But I think this is a great team, great coaching staff. Redekop's going to do a great job now on the coaching staff from being a player. And I look forward to seeing what this team does this season. This division as a whole is loaded. I can't wait to see what the Central Division does starting this fall. Well, make sure to subscribe to our channel below. Thank you so much for tuning into our off-season content, and we will see you in 2 weeks to preview the Mountain Division.